sit down, grab a snack, and strap in because this is gonna be a long one. Long one. Never mind. Tokyo Ghoul is one of the most popular anime of all time. On the website My Anime List, it comes in at a 7.9 overall rating from 746,516 users, but ranks at number 6 in terms of popularity, with 1,150,573 fans marking it down on their lists. Personally, it's actually tied for first on my list with the highest rated anime of all time on the same site, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and it's tied with a few others as well. It nails horror and suspense in an almost perfect manner in its very first episode, showing intense close-ups of Ken that make it easy to feel the same confusion and shock that he's feeling, having his entire world molded into something horrifying. The concept of the series is what makes it so powerful. We often see characters lose possessions, homes, or loved ones, and all that can be powerful, but Tokyo Ghoul showed viewers something exceptionally different, with Ken losing his humanity by having to feast on human flesh to survive. There wasn't anything he had to move on from, but something he had to move on to. It's one of the most taboo possibilities within human society, something that has real-world existence. Everything about it is near perfect to me. It's just something about watching the reactions of a newly formed ghoul contrasted with the hardened veterans he finds himself surrounded by. Toka's acceptance of it as a basic necessity, trying to force Ken, someone she has known for almost no time, to eat on principle alone. To her, Ken is more of a spoiled child refusing to eat dinner. It's almost insulting from her perspective. Ghouls live in the shadows, struggling to find food without killing, and here's a whiny boy who stumbled upon a free meal and won't eat it. And Nishiki tempting Kaneki to eat his best and seemingly only friend in an amazing scene that plays with color, emotion, appeal, and the roots of basic human needs and instinct. The oddly seductive Rize driving home the true appeal of the situation, like hanging a leg of meat in front of a literal starving beast. And then we shift to Tsukiyama, who treats being a ghoul as a blessing, taking a gruesome and mundane task and turning it into a spectacle of a celebration. A complete package of entertainment, fine dining, and exclusive company. A simply astonishing contrast, throwing a horrific scenario under the guise of class and culture, the gentlemanly surface Tsukiyama ending the moment on his own, drenching himself in a shower of blood while speaking softly to Ken. From there, the genre shifts more to the action, with the world of ghouls undergoing some radical changes, with a cast of realistically interconnected characters in a worsening situation. The middle ground between the CCG and Algori tree where our focuses lie, just trying to keep peaceful lives only to be hunted down, turned upon, and tortured. We see superb tinges of insanity and horror as the action rises to the spotlight, only to be cast quickly back down into the depths of horror in the finale's torture scene. In a lengthy and disturbing display of specifics, we have the moral middle ground questioned, see the truth of Ken's past, and overall flip his entire psyche on its head. He goes through true hell, embraces it as his own, in one of the most satisfying character changes I've ever seen. The once timid and shy Kaneki literally tackles and pins the other side of his mind in a complete role reversal with the man who just made him that way. I've discussed this scene before in detail, so click the card on screen if you want to see even more about it. I cannot say enough about how well Tokyo Ghoul was handled. Well, until the second season. And the third. And one of the worst things I've ever seen, the fourth. Route A and Re Season 1 clearly didn't hit the bar set by the original, but maintained some of the tact and grace viewers came to know, falling anywhere from average to below average. Honestly, they serve as a testament as to how amazing the first season was, as after 24 sequel episodes I did not enjoy, I was still ready for more in Re Season 2, and I really wish I hadn't been. Tokyo Ghoul Re Season 2 aired and finished in late 2018 to the worst reception the series garnered, a 6.4 rating on My Anime List, which, let's be real, My Anime List ratings tend to be higher anyway because the people who are fans of the series are really going to vote for it, so in my eyes it should be way lower than that, because to me it deserves nowhere near a 6.46. That is literally just fan wank nostalgia to me. It ties for last on my list, sitting at a 2 out of 10. Mostly because I will not give a series a 1 out of 10 unless it physically comes to life, hops out of the screen, and kills me with a rusty screwdriver. Where the original delivered a dark atmosphere and horror and intensity, followed by dramatic action and wrenching moments, Re Season 2 only had the dissipating fumes of prior success to run from. The prior 2 seasons left a cast of characters seemingly double the size of My Hero with 1/10 of the personality. They exist in a bland and dry atmosphere, devoid of any real emotion or meaningful conflict, and enough plot holes that even Bonaktarski would scream at. This left the stage a mire of possible failure for Re Season 2, and its method to address these problems left the worst finish to one of the greatest beginnings in the history of media. Most of this can more than likely be attributed to the extreme compression of 127 chapters into 1/10 as many episodes. But is it possible to look outside of this fact and address the first and fourth seasons on even ground? Actually, it is. In order to tackle my gripes with the anime in even more detail, we need to take a look at the same scene told once in the original and once in Re Season 2. Unfortunately, we have a scene that fits the bill. Kaneki and Rize conversing within his mind, once from the finale of Season 1 and once from Episode 10 of Re Season 2. Let's discuss the background of each. They are spurred on from a bout of insanity by Ken, each of them through a massive extent of injuries after which he's seen at his most powerful yet. During these moments, Rize calls to question why he's in that situation, explains how it's his fault, attempts to flip his thought process around, and makes him see what he truly wanted. This all takes place in an abstract setting. I think this is the closest of any 2 scenes that can be found between the two, but there's a world of difference when you look deeper than that. We're starting off with the most damning evidence, mostly because it's what spurred me to make this video on, and it's not worth it to go ahead and change it. Re Season 2 isn't worth the effort. But the most jarring contrast is in Ken's facial expressions. In Season 1, we see true fear entangled with pain and anger, filling his expression as he comes face to face with a moral dilemma he's always ignored. During his most intense lines, his face is extremely dramatic, featuring those shifting vertical lines anime uses to emphasize such scenes, complementing the increase and decreasing size of his pupils, shaking and strained, all contained within his eye. Looking at Re Season 2, we see Rize confront Ken with his slaughter of thousands of innocent bystanders. His face only shifts once, going from a bland frown to a simple show of concern when confronted with this fact. When we focus up to his eyes, it's a pan over a static image. There's a little bit of shift within his eyes, but his pupils are stuck firm in place, showing more boredom than fear or regret. There's nothing more to say about his expressions, as the once vocal and lively young man is replaced by a soulless shell. This may appear to be in line with his shift in personality, but this is supposed to be Ken Kaneki once more. This is him coming back to himself because of Hinami. But this is before Yamuri's torture, before his entrance to Agiri Tree, and before Heisei. Of course, he still has those memories and would be more hardened from them, but to have almost no reaction to such a vast slaughter feels out of character. This might be a more hardened and stoic Ken, but this is the worst thing he's ever done and garners the least reaction we have ever seen. He wanted to be the link between humans and ghouls, which he gives up completely in an all-out power grab to protect only his friends. So it's somewhat in line with those ideas that he would have less of a reaction, but we see from the following conversation that he clearly had no idea the true effect his actions would have. He should at least have some shock to his actions. Both scenes give some time to more static long shots, so those can be addressed as well. Season 1 shows a connection to Ken's real-world situation. His surroundings remain the abstract canvas of white extending into infinity, yet he sits chained to the chair he's being tortured in. His blood marks the pure white floor, the only hint of life save his reflection, which fades softly back to nothingness. His head is down. He honestly looks dead. And if you've watched Season 1 and seen that scene, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's simplistic, leaving the attention for larger moments, and despite its nature, it's fucking beautiful. A complete contrast to the situation which caused it, which still shows prevalent with the puddles of blood. Sometimes when it cuts out into these scenes, Rize is nowhere to be seen, despite having been right beside him, driving home just how alone he is. It's so well done. It encompasses the entire scenario. Over to Re 2, its closest comparison goes for a textured mix of purple and black as the background instead. We actually see a few variations of this kind of same idea, I guess, but we really don't get many of Ken alone. It's something that's more lacking, but we can still draw the comparison to some of these more long shot-esque scenes. This one specifically sits vertically, making the shot feel much more boxed in and claustrophobic. It makes the scene feel less like an insight into his mind, lacking the open space feeling of discovery. It features slight motion from the pair, and also in the form of an old school film filter with pops and crackles and the like. Although this filter applies to these tones as something we often see used in these situations, it is most certainly placed on the wrong shot. It draws attention to this as one of the peak moments, having that added intensity and extra dynamics, rather than his discovery or change, making those moments a lot less impactful. The settings for each are abstract, yet Re Season 2's is much more busy. It's a picturesque and beautiful setting, hitting the contrast, but it's over-designed for the moment. Now, this could be somewhat of a more traditionally used setting, details often used in the tradition to the afterlife and such. We see those, the typical arches you would think of in those kinds of scenes, but I don't think a traditional reason excuses these missteps entirely. The focus should be the dialogue, with the other aspects adding more emotion to it. They both shift to feature red heavily as they conclude. Now, the shift in Re Season 2 is allocated to a simple gradient along the water, which happens just like that, and an unrealistic fade of red in the background, and that's about it. In Season 1, we see this take place with the field appearing around them. A single bloodstained flower takes a new form, embracing the color and taking it on in full, mirroring Ken's shift. As he confirms this shift more and more, the flowers do as well, increasing in number each time we see them, until he tackles Rize into a full field of red in his most dominant act yet. It's stunning, and again, it's just something so beautiful from such a fucked up scene, and it adds dynamics to a scene that add to what the viewer should be feeling. It's a gradual change that can't be seen all at once, much like true change. While all of this is happening, the music is growing and ebbing and flowing in the back, not just in volume, but in intensity. This marks the important points with spikes of intensity, a beautiful score pronouncing loudly, "Pay attention to me," after the calm and reflective silence of the scene's intro. And of course, it reaches its peak literally as he devours the demon of Rize inside of him, swapping from its quick hits of high notes to the dramatic stun of long, low notes. This hits at the same time as the shift of his hair from black to white, the final true mark of his new personality. Re Season 2 addresses the situation much differently, opting for a more silent approach for the background music, or just background noises in general. Silence is often one of the most striking and powerful tools in the drama arsenal, but this is supposed to be it. This is another crescendo of Ken's personality as he discovers what he wanted all along. And there's no music to emphasize it at all. It lacks the easy drama that comes from a piano score. It's so easy. You can make anything dramatic with a piano score. I can hear the sounds of the first scene in my head, which makes it even easier to recall the voices coming through on top of it, and Re Season 2 lacks the extra conduit of remembrance for its dialogue, making it fall all the more flat. Another aspect that helped make moments of Season 1 stand out was the odd sexuality that Rize supplied, which she does through most of her scenes. It's something I actually wanted to discuss before I got to the original torture scene. The intro to the show is her naked devouring a mass of corpses. It says right away what it's going to be, and she's responding to Yumori in a breathy and seductive manner, even throwing a big man, small tool joke in there. This carries over to all of her scenes as the binge eater. Her first attack on Kaneki, the way she holds him during his thoughts in surgery, and of course the final torture scene and his thoughts going on in his own head. It's actually dropped when she starts to make her point in that final scene, which draws even more attention to what she's saying because she has that sudden shift. And then it picks right back up again as she's stroking his face while speaking of wanting to devour him. When he finally sees her point, she once again grasps his face, locks eyes with him, just calls him a good boy. This adds another layer of connection and anticipation that is entirely lacking from Re Season 2. Instead, we get a Rize who still speaks in the same style of voice, obviously same voice actor, but with dry and devoid dialogue, with no hint of connection to Ken, played even more by having to ask, "Do you hate me?" killing all the confidence we may have seen from her. And one of the biggest details, they touch once. Fucking once. Rather than being all over him as she was in the original, they simply sit at a distance and touch hands once. She's a fucking insane killer who's trying to dig deeper into one of her victims' heads and is literally a part of him. Why would you not show that with physical contact? They look like strangers, and maybe that's the point, that he's moved on from that connection. But it also goes against the dialogue where he says he doesn't actually hate her and things like that. In fact, they hardly even look at one another, with their gazes set into the distance for the most part, only looking back to give a stupid one-liner goodbye. Compare this to the first scene where their gaze only breaks after he's literally conquered and literally devoured her. These looks had meaning and focus behind them and flowed with the action. A random stare into the distance has none of that. The overall flow is much less satisfying as well. The lack of music to mark the peaks we already covered as I miss, and its physical transitions are lacking as well. The original has a constant of his seat. He is in that point in space. That is where he is existing, and it is a connection between his real-world situation and what we are seeing within his own mind. And when there's a major shift, it fades in and out around this central point, grounding the scene as one massive long flow despite having many cuts. I actually, in my head, thought it was just one kind of anime, one take, but it's not. It has a lot of cuts, but I didn't remember them because guess what? It focuses around this central point. And when the flashback territory is entered, it has its own audio, unique frames, and it just makes it a part of the sequence. Reed Season 2 makes quick cuts to his memories, like slideshow, clip show style, lacking all of their audio as disjointed clips of his past. Him and Ryusei transition from the water to the land by fading out of a scrolling hallway, and he wakes up curled up behind her. It feels so nonsensical and jagged, and lacks a true flow or feel of growth. Again, the point could be to feel disjointed and jarring, but why? This is Ken taking his final form. This is the true finale of his personality, and he seems extremely confident in his actions and who he is. So the scene should reflect that if that's what they were going for, which it doesn't do at all. The character designs leave much to be desired as well. Honestly, his design for the entire season is very underwhelming to me. It's so just flat and boring and dry and bleh. It's ugh. If I had to describe it with a sound, that sound would be bleh. It would be the sound you make before you vomit. No, it'd be the sound you make while you're vomiting, because it's fucking vomit. So, you can see I obviously don't like it, but it's especially lacking for this specific moment as well. In Season 1, his mind is fractured and he is completely, truly a broken man from Yamaru's torture. His appearance reflects this to no end. He is disheveled, bloody, torn, and scarred. It's simply his design from the situation he's in, but it furthers this surrounding moment as well, and adds some dynamic looks into the more static portions of the scene. His design for Re Season 2 is like his personality, bland. A simple white shirt and black pants with nothing else to it. That's it. It's just a plain white shirt tucked into plain black pants. And his hair, he's only two colors. It just sucks. There's nothing dynamic or interesting to it at all. And again, maybe that's what they were going for, but why? Because that's such a terrible design. Even with the scene going for a more formal feel, that's so underdone. Just look at it compared to the Ontaku outfits. They fit the same bill. They are a formal outfit, but with so much more life to them. Could they really not include any of those similar details? If you take the long shots that we were talking about earlier, where he's sitting in the chair alone in that kind of white field, and put him in the outfit from Ray Season 2, those scenes immediately become so much less impactful and just beautiful looking as they are, because there's nothing to contrast that background. The background is more interesting than he is in this scene. Why should we focus on him if he doesn't physically have any appeal to him at all? And also, if his outfit was torn and disheveled for the scene, which it should be, he literally just turned into the dragon, as they say. So what? He's clearly trying to leave this setting he's in. So him being visually distinct from it can only further the feel of him wanting to get back to Toka. You've probably got the idea by now. There's honestly probably even more I could talk about just between these two scenes, but no one has enough time to listen to me go over everything I'd really want to about the difference between the two series. Now, a lot of Ree's flaws can be attributed to the fact that 127 chapters were squeezed lifeless into 12 episodes. The pacing, random drops of info, insanely short fight sequences, the lack of depth to any events, the list goes on, and again, if I went through all of them, we'd be here forever. But here we looked at two scenes designed to play the same role, taking a small sliver of each to analyze for stand-alone quality. Any engineering nerds out there, this is like in calculus when you keep taking smaller and smaller sections to find the total area under curve. It's like integrating the series. And what we see through this is one of the most clear drops in quality of any two seasons of any media. I started rewatching season 1 again for this video, and outside of a select few things like Metal Gear Solid, it was the most nostalgic I've ever felt for a series. You know how long ago I watched it for the first time? Less than a year ago. It's just about maybe 8 to 10 months ago. I felt so nostalgic to see something good from it again. So it could just be the disappointment of 36 episodes that followed, 3/4 of the series, trying desperately to find something of the same quality. Or maybe it's just that the original series was that fucking good. For my tastes and what I want out of a show, it's nearly perfect. That's why I hate to have to make this video. That's why I hate how long it is. This is gonna take me so long to edit and record and everything. I'm already at half an hour right now. It's so much effort that I don't want to have to put into it, but not because I don't want to put the effort in, because I wanted it to be good. That's why I went on countless rants like this one after I finished the last episode. I was legitimately just so unhappy with it. I love the original to bits. It's a series that fans love more than its creator. In the afterword to the Re manga, Sui Ishida, the series creator, expressed the toll it took on his life and how it was more or less just a paycheck to him. I'll link to the full text below, and it's honestly worth a read and makes this video even more painful. I mean, watching creators forced to keep working on something endlessly to meet a deadline is something that very sadly happens way too much in creative industries. Put the obligatory Metal Gear Solid reference here. The anime is different from the manga, but it was working from a source material that lost its passion. For fans, Tokyo Ghoul was an experience, an escape into a different world. But for its creator, it was an obligation and simply a way to pay the bills. I can't place any fault on Ishida for that. In an ideal world, creators could step away from the work and come back refreshed, or take the time to find something new if they wanted to be done altogether. This is a world where concern number one in most places is getting the next paycheck no matter the field. And I can't be mad at a man trying to maintain his life. And that's not a reason to be mad at a creator or send them threats or any ill will or anything like that in any way. But that doesn't mean you can't criticize the work they make. At the end of the day, looking at it in a vacuum outside of its, situations that may have contributed to that, that's how we have to look at things to be analytical and say what's good and what's not, or else everything would be a 10. And all of that stuff won't make me blind to a shit anime. Tokyo Ghoul Season 1 was it was interesting and fun to watch and all these great things, and then Re is just a convoluted, lifeless, downright terrible mess.